Hello, everybody. Candlelighting time this evening is 4:18. Yes, you heard me right, 4:18. Now, this Shabbos, the Torah portion we're going to read ends with an amazing story about Abraham. Abraham and his wife Sarah were blessed with a child in their old age. She was 90, he was 100, and God made this miraculous thing happen that they were able to have a child so late in life. And of course, this was their pride and joy, their only child. And as the years go by, God comes to Abraham and tells him, I want you to sacrifice your one and only son, Isaac. Now, of course, God didn't really want him to sacrifice him. This was only a test. God wanted to see to what extent would Abraham go in his service to God, even if he would ask him something so difficult, like ask him to sacrifice his own son. And of course, he came through with flying colors, and an angel stopped him the last minute, and of course, he received tremendous blessings from the Almighty. Now, why does God have to do this? Why does God have to test the person and to see what his level of devotion is? God knows without testing a person what his level of devotion is. And it's explained in Hasidic philosophy the following. Everything in this world has a godly spark. Every blade of grass, every leaf of every tree, every fruit, everything has a godly spark. And the purpose of creation is to elevate that godly spark. Now, how do we elevate a godly spark? By utilizing that physical object in our service to the Almighty. When we use a physical object as a tool and a vessel to serve God, and that object enables us to serve God, then we just elevated the spark from that object, and in turn, the spark bestows upon us a very high level of godliness. Now, there's different levels of sparks. There are godly sparks that are very high-level godly sparks, and then there are godly sparks that are lower-level godly sparks. Now, how does the system work? How do we know which object has a high-level spark or a low-level spark? And Hasidus explains that, as a famous rule, the higher they are, the lower they fall. That means that something which is a very lowly physical object will have a very, very high spark. That explains why a human being needs to have food in order to be sustained. A human being, mankind, is the highest level in the world. Animals, plants, inanimate objects, these are all lower levels. So why do I need a fruit or a vegetable or grains of wheat or meat or fish in order to be sustained and to be nourished? I should be sustaining and nourishing those objects because I'm a higher level than those things I mentioned. But the answer is that because they are lower than mankind, they have a higher spark. And that's the higher spark that sustains the person who eats the food. Now, what would be the lowest thing in this world where the highest of all sparks would come into? That would be a test. A test is considered the lowest thing in the world. Why? Because a test is something which is interfering and challenging the person's service to the Almighty. There's a possible jeopardy of the person not being able to serve God because of this test. Let's say a person has to go to the synagogue and it's pouring with rain. He says, well, it's pouring. I'm going to get my hat wet, and it's a little bit of a test. Are you going to go to shul that morning or not? Or let's say a person's looking for a job, and the person needs a job, has a family, has to put food on the table, has to pay mortgage and other expenses, and can't find a job. Finally, the person finds an amazing job. It's everything, all the conditions are perfect, and the pay is much more than he expected. Only one small problem. He has to work on Shabbos. and he doesn't want to work on Shabbos, but he's got to put food on the table. He has a family. What does he do? Now, if he stands strong and says, obviously this job is not for me, God has a job set aside for me other than this one, and I will find it, and he ignores the job offer, then that very test has a spark, and that spark is elevated, and it bestows upon the person a very high level of godliness upon his soul. And you should know the rule that whenever God tests someone, he doesn't test anyone until God knows that the person that is being tested has the ability to pass the test. God gives each and every one of us the power and the ability to pass whatever challenge, whatever issue, whatever test comes our way. So we have to be strong and be able to elevate those last few sparks that will bring the coming of Mashiach, and may he come very soon. Have a very good, joyous, and meaningful Shabbos.